Hello, and welcome to the Sutliffian Report. We're going to cover Shariah and can it stand up to critical thinking? We're going to look at Section A 5.0 to 7.2. But first, because this is a Christian news show, I want to get into the Word of God. And I'm starting with Galatians chapter 2, verses 11 to 21. But when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. For before that certain came from James. He did eat with the Gentiles, but when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision. And the other Jews dissembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. But when I saw, um, but when I saw they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, if you, being a Jew, live after the manner of the Gentiles, and not as do the Jews, why do you compel the Gentiles to live as do the Jews? We who are Jews by nature, and not sinners of the Gentiles, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. But if, while we seek to justify by Christ, we ourselves also are found sinners, is therefore Christ the minister of sin? God forbid. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. For I, through the law, am dead to the law, that I might live unto God. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness comes by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. So here's my thoughts. Paul spoke up about Peter accepting the foolishness that circumcision should be required. You know, he doesn't come out and really say it, but he starts to act that way. The truth is that even today there are groups classified as Judaizers who believe the law plays a part in salvation. They say things like, without baptism you can't be saved. And they claim things like, without access to the Lord's Supper, which they deny you access to, you can't get to heaven. They may also say if you don't worship on a certain day, you're not going to heaven. Sorry, Charlie, there is nothing we can do to save ourselves. That's how it is. It's just nothing you can do. It doesn't matter what. You can't do anything. Oh, wait a minute. So it's a gift. Salvation is a gift from God. These are all added rules that we're talking about there. They're just made up added things. And laws take people away from the Word of God. They're good. Not saying they're bad. They point out what you do that's stupid. They point out what you do that's wrong. But it's this gift. Salvation is a gift given by God. It's not something you can pay for. And it's a gift given so freely that it was given to me, and it can be given to you. And it's given personally by the Lord Jesus Christ. Dear Lord Jesus, place us firmly in your word. Guide us deeper into that word, that we may know that which is true and that which is not. Lord, take us deeper into your word each day, that we may know you more. Lord, work on us continually, that we may become more of an example of your love to others. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, I started out with that, and I picked that for a couple reasons. I have been sharing out my devotional on Facebook and through email, and I do this in LinkedIn. But I've had a couple Jews start to attack me for sharing this. Welcome, Sharon.
Yeah, hi.
I'm kind of shocked that Jews would be attacking me for sharing the love of Christ, and then they start attacking me and saying, "Well, you can keep your religion." Well, excuse me. You came on the post to insult Jesus, and you're telling me I can keep my religion.
Are you talking to
So,
me?
no, no, no. I'm talking to. This is what happened to me this week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they came on. They came on. I posted these devotionals I write every day. I put out in Facebook. I post in LinkedIn, and I share an email. And I have two Jews who are very very upset that I'm talking about Jesus. And this is something that's kind of beyond my comprehension. That it's that offensive. Okay, I really don't care that it's offensive. I says your opinion is what's getting in the way of your accepting what's true. It's not anything that I say. It's not. It's the word of God. Well, the responses are just filled with anger, and I shouldn't be surprised about that. I mean, who would turn away a free gift? An angry person. I get that. I don't understand being angry though at this, and this is where it gets interesting for me. Even today, about 4 or 5 times, and this is on something that's been going on for about a week. And I have to sit there and laugh. Why are you guys so angry that I'm talking about Jesus gave us a free gift? What makes you angry that Jesus? I mean, when you think about this, if God gives you a free gift, why would you get angry about God giving you a gift? Okay. I have seen recently I've seen a couple people healed of cancer. And I'm just okay, that's an incredible free gift. All right. Incredible and free. Great. But what about something that's free that lasts for eternity? Forever long, that you're going to exist, period. I'm not talking about your physical being, I'm talking about you existing. Won't you think that'd be more powerful and greater? I don't understand the anger. But let's get into um, this topic. This is going to be fun. And I'm going to share my screen. This should be fun. And it's going to be, I'm going to try and pay attention to both screens. So if I do not do well, please let me know. If things don't look big enough for you, let me know. I will make them a little bigger. Maybe I'll just, yeah. All right. Let's make my mouse over here. Okay, here we go. And come on. Okay. So I'm starting out with A4.2 because this is where we were the last time I met. I took a week off. I had a low tech vacation. I left my charging cord at home. So this is the number one reason I wasn't on last week. And I got to go visit Missouri and see Usama and enjoy wonderful 60 and 70-degree weather. I got to see cement poured and a whole bunch of other things. Usama's a hard worker. And it's interesting to. I have no knowledge of construction. It was very interesting to watch, and it was good. So let me get into this A4.2. It says, as for the basic obligation of Islam and what relates to the tenets of faith, it is adequate for one to believe in everything brought by the messenger of Allah and to credit it with absolute conviction. Now, listen to this next part. Free of any doubt. Let's go back. Credit it with absolute conviction, free of any doubt. This is a contradiction to Judeo Christianity. You're allowed to bring your doubts. We even got an apostle called the Doubting Thomas, and he questions Jesus right to his face. I mean, and then he sees Jesus like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. But is it wrong? If you look at how Jesus responded to him, go ahead, put your hands in my holes. Do it. Jesus is okay with your doubts. But this is the only way you can accept Islam. Absolute conviction, free of any doubt. Throw your brain out. Don't accept any. Not allowed to question. And we're going to get into that more a little bit later today. This is the reason why I'm starting back here. It says, whoever does this is not obliged to learn the evidences of the scholastic theologians. So you can throw your brain out and not be obliged to learn anymore. And I'm frozen. And I'm back. Can you hear me? Oh, hear me? Hello? Can anyone hear me? Please respond. Looks like I got. All right. Oh, not cool. Audio is very bad, huh? Let me double check. I have two mics here. That's interesting.
I can hear you, Paul. You're loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Huh. All right. Thank you. Fighting.
I can hear you now.
Okay. I had a bad tech experience today. I dropped my favorite lappy, and I'm not having a good tech day. So if things are a little befuddled, I apologize. It's my own stupidity that started this this bad part. All right. I want you to think about what it would mean for you as if you were following Islam, you'd have to give up every doubt. And this is just not Jesus' way. Whoever, and it goes on, it says, whoever does this is not obliged to learn the evidences of the scholastic theologians. Well, the truth is they don't have any evidences. You can't prove that Muhammad was real because you can't find Mecca. So, scholastic evidences, I think that part is hilarious. The prophet, whoever the part of a prophet is, did not require anyone anything, but what we've just mentioned. Now think about that. What was required? Absolute conviction without any doubt. Really? You're required to follow blindly. You're required not to have questions. What does that say about your humanity? To follow someone blindly. That sounds like someone who has to be brainwashed to the point where they can't think for themselves. And that's a little scary. I'm going to go down to this next yellow section here. I'll finish this. Nor does the first four caliphs, the other prophetic companions, nor the other Muslim community who came after them. And then it goes on. Rather, what befits the common people, which will be you and me, but these are Muslims, okay? What befits the common people and the vast majority of those learning or possessing sacred knowledge is to refrain from discussing the subtleties of scholastic theology, lest corruption, difficult to eliminate, find its way into their basic religious convictions. So they're saying, if you have doubts, it's going to bother your religious convictions. And they say, rather, it is fitter for them to confine themselves to contentment with the above mentioned. Okay. So if you have any questions, stop. Don't ask them. It's not going to help. It's going to make you leave. So shut up. I sit there like, now look at this. What kind of a faith structure says you're not allowed to question? It's called a totalitarian faith structure. If you don't believe in the absolute leader, they'll kill you. That's the interesting thing. That's okay. So think about that. This is the best Islam offers us, the obligation you believe and don't dare ask a question. And we're even at the end of what we're going to be talking about today in this line has to do with this. You're not allowed to have a question. I got a big one here. I'm gonna pick on you for a minute, Eric, if you're able to answer. and I think I've asked you this one before. Anybody who is ever been in a school, what is the number one way we learn? It's by asking. Eric, can you answer that one? What? How do we?
Yeah,
How do
asking
you?
questions, questioning whatever the material is. How did it get there? What events led up to it? What is the cause and effect? All these things, sure.
Yeah, and if you can't, so this is the reason why you don't have Muslims asking, how come we can't find Mecca on the map? Uh, really, if Mo's so important, why is he
Because it
only
wasn't
mentioned?
there. That's why we can't find it.
If Mo's so important, why is he only mentioned 4 times? Why are all these other why are these stories? Why don't they line up that are in the Quran? Why do they contradict each other? I mean, if Allah's so great, why does he keep changing his mind? Why does Allah say, he's the God of maybe? That part I will never stop laughing about. So let me read you this part. This is from some Al Ghazali, Kitab al, the Book of Knowledge, and I have this book at home. Should a person of sound mind reach adulthood either by reaching puberty or attaining an age of maturity? Now we'll talk about that in a minute. Then, for example, in the early morning, the first obligation incumbent on him is to learn the 2 statements of faith, Shahada, and understand their meaning. This is being there is no God but God, and this problem here. This is the number one problem I see. This is the shirk thing. There is no God but God, and this is a marriage of God with a partner, and Muhammad is his messenger. One of the things I've learned, recently is I look at the older shahadas. You know what I find? That word "and" isn't there. I'm finding that interesting. Hey, Rad, welcome. Um, it is not incumbent on him to ascertain the illumination of this for himself by means of insight, inquiry, or the scrutiny of profs. Rather, it is sufficient for him to affirm the truth of this and believe decisively with no feeling of doubt or anxiety. I mean, you got to sit there and ask, can you believe? This is what I love about Christianity. They want you to ask questions. They want you to find evidence that backs up your faith. Oh, wait a minute. You're allowed to question, absolutely. You're allowed to go and, yeah, please question. We want you to learn. Don't sit there like a fool and not ask questions. Please do. All right. And let's see. Go to the next page. All right. So it says communally obligatory knowledge. And I'm going to be teaching you something very humorous about this piece and about what I just read to you pretty soon. And Al Nawawi, it says the second category of sacred knowledge is what communally obligatory, namely the attainment of those sacred sciences which people cannot do without, is practicing their religion, such as memorizing the Quran and the Hadith, their ancillary disciplines, methodological principles, sacred law, grammar, lexicology, declension, knowledge, Hadith transmissions, and scholarly consensus and non-consensus. I apologize for the red lines and it looks like in the wrong spaces. This is me moving between computers, and that was perfect on the other computer. I apologize for that. All right. Here's my biggest problem with this. What is science? um, Sacred sciences. Guess what? The word sacred doesn't exist in this. It's not there.
Paul, you're muted. Your lips were moving, but I couldn't hear you. You're still muted. Your lips are moving, but I still don't hear you. Let me see on YouTube.
Wow. This is a real pain in the bleep.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay. You can? Okay.
Yeah.
This is
I can hear you now.
frustrating. I am fighting. Okay. All right. Now I can see myself. It is it is what it is. I can only do so much. Technology is just technology. All right. Keep thinking about what this says. I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell you what it actually says in Arabic in a minute. And this to me is a number let's look at A5.2 first. As for learning which is not sacred knowledge, I'm telling you, the word sacred is not there. And I'm going to be talking about that in a minute. Let's look at it in a different way. It says, as learning for that which is not.
You went out again.
Can you hear me again?
Oh, now I can hear you.
I'm not changing anything. This is crazy. Can you hear me, Sharon?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for listening, Darcy. It's a little frustrating. All right. There's a StreamYard for those who want to join. All right. Go away. I have problems with this. All right. As learning which is not sacred knowledge, it says it is required to sustain worldly existence, such as medicine and mathematics. It too is a communal obligation. And let me keep going here. Now, that's what it says in English. But did it really say that? According to Usama's translation, it says this: Al-Nawawi, the ordinance of sufficiency. Now, I put it in there phonetically so I would remember how to spell it, how to say it, and it's probably not spelled the same, but that's how I would remember myself to write it. Okay. The ordinance of sufficiency. Now, he was kind using the term ordinance. It's something obligatory. Notice here it doesn't say communal. It is attainment, and it is gathering what the people need to perform their religion from the scientific law, to establish their religion from science. It is to perform the religion from the scientific laws, like the memorization of the Quran and the Hadiths, and its sciences, root of the law, and the grammar and the language morphology, which is study of words, and knowing the Hadith narrators with the Hadith chains, okay? Consensus and disagreement. That's quite different. You don't hear anything here about communal obligation. And here's where I was talking with Usam about this. Why are they not using the word sacred when they're talking about knowledge? Why are they not using that? And he says, well, they're trying to make things pretty. And I thought about that. That says a lot. They're trying to make things pretty. And make it look nicer. They're dressing things up. And as for what is not legal knowledge and is needed in the matter of the world, such as medicine and mathematics, then it is a sufficient ordinance as well. So, not legal. Look at the difference. A5.2 in English says that it's supposed to be an exact translation. Remember, the Muslim Brotherhood says this is an exact translation. They don't look even close to the same. As for learning what is not legal knowledge, how is legal and sacred the same thing? Legal would be like Shariah. Okay. Legal knowledge is needed for the matter of the world, such as medicine and mathematics. Now, Usama's translation was actually arithmetic, and I changed it to mathematics because when I think of arithmetic, I think of adding, subtracting more than I do multiplying, dividing, and a whole bunch of other fields. And I think the intention is a little broader than adding and subtracting. subtracting, which is what I think of arithmetic. All right. I'm looking at this like you got to start looking at these words that are missing. This word sacred missing is a problem. This is extreme problem. Thank you for coming in, Darcy. All right. And we go on. This is going to drive me nuts. That the red, and let's see if I can fix that. And let's see if I can fix these real quick. There we go. Okay. The third category is a supererogatory. Now, I had to go look up what that word meant. Supererogatory. Performed or observed beyond the required expected degree. Okay. Superfluous. Unnecessary. Why did you use a word like supererogatory to tell us something about something that's unnecessary? Why are you legislating a rule that's unnecessary, huh? Such as in-depth research into the basis of evidences. Oh, so you really don't want us learning. You don't want us asking questions. Definitely sounds like Islam. And elaboration beyond the amount required by the communal obligation of or such as an ordinary Muslim learning the details of non-obligatory acts of worship. This is where it gets interesting to me. If you are a Muslim, there is something, just the concept that there is something called non-obligatory acts of worship. So you're obligated to do some things, and you're not obligated to do others. Okay, what are Christians obligated to do? Well, you're supposed to talk to God. That's praying. Worship, let's think about that. Are you obligated to worship? Which, for many of us, that would mean singing or, saying praise to God. Okay, worship. It's a really broad concept. Are we obligated to worship? I think it's kind of hard to serve a God who loves you without worshiping him. I would say that'd be very difficult. Are you obligated to? And I'm not going to say you are. I just think it would be very difficult to worship. I mean, to serve the God you serve without worship. I really see that as difficult. And again, they have a difference between what they're obliged to do and what they're not. The only thing that Christians have to do, this is the part that gets me. I may never understand it. The only thing Christians are obliged to do is to simply do this. Give their life. All you have to do is decide that you want to serve Christ. That's it. That's all that's required. All right. And had to pick a button here. All right, sorry about that. All right, let's keep going. Over here. Come on. All right. This refers to C4.2 when they're talking about supererogatory. And I sit there like, okay, what's that supposed to be? The second category is those acts which performance is sanctioned by sacred law. Again, the word sacred is not there, such that the person who performs them is rewarded, though someone who omits them deserves neither punishment nor blame. Okay, this includes acts of the prophet, Allah bless, and did not diligently perform, but did one or more times and then discontinued. It also includes all voluntary acts. So again, voluntary means you don't have to do these things. So spending on the poor. Okay, that kind of makes sense. You have a choice. Fasting on Thursdays of each week. Okay, I can get you having a choice. Wait a minute. Praying Raka units. Wait a minute. I thought prayers were obligatory. So pay a little close attention. Praying Raka units of prayer in addition. So if you decide you want to pray more, that's not obligatory. Okay, I can kind of get that if they're saying you have to do so many and you want to do worship, they want to do more. Okay. Confirmed sunnah prayers. A category is called extra sunnah or they're using this word supererogatory, which doesn't exist in Arabic that I know of. Okay. Says something. They want to put in a fancy word to dress things up. Supererogatory. Oh, think about that. What's the purpose in dressing this up? Now, and I'm going to I've got this in and I did not. Let me just put an animation on that for a second. And I'm going to go back. Okay. Forgive me. All right. And now I can't see what I wanted. All right, great. Okay, so I'll know Wowie. So again, this is that 6.1. Here's what it really says.
You see what's happening when you have a consistent toss with that. You got 5 in a row. You got to come down right over the right shoulder.
Notice there's no sacred knowledge again. It is like examining the foundations of evidence, looking beyond the fate by which this obligation of sufficiency, as educating the normal person as worship windows. Like, I had to stop and think, what is that? He says, that's what it says. And you start thinking about how the Quran's written, you start thinking, okay, they don't listen to what they even write. Now what the scholars would go or do to separate the ordinance from the non-obligatory, which is a communal obligation in respect to them. And Allah knows best, really. Allah knows best what worship windows are. He has to make a rule about it. Okay. All right. Some of this is just going to sound incredibly boring. I get that. But it's humorous at the same time. And that's sad in many ways, but that is the sad, sorry truth. All right, this next one. I have a whole bunch on this page. I'm going to start up with A7.1. Al-Nawawi, having mentioned the categories of sacred knowledge, the subjects it excludes are those that are unlawful, offensive, or permissible. Now, pay attention to what it says are unlawful or permissible. First thing it says, unlawful knowledge includes learning sorcery. Okay, I can kind of get that. Christianity really is against this concept. Okay. Since, according to the most reliable position, it says it is unlawful, the vast majority of scholars have decisively stated. Here's the next one, philosophy. And I did have quite a conversation with Usama about this. Why would anyone outlaw the learning of? Why would you outlaw anything that says, that teaches you philosophy? Philosophy, here's the reason why. Philosophy teaches you to question things. Oh, but they don't want you questioning things. We have a problem. If you're learning to question things, we have I mean, this is where it gets insane. You have to be able to question things. And if philosophy says to question, okay, that's the one that really gets me. They don't want you to question. You don't want you to think about taking. And this is the other thing. In philosophy, you learn to take things apart and put them back together again. If you take things apart, you find out what things stand on. Well, if there's nothing there, if you take it apart, it's all empty air. So you got to find out when you look at it. This is the thing I love about apologetics. You find out what's essential. What can a faith do without? And there's nothing that stands underneath that. It can't stand on its own. That's not a good faith. Oh, this next one kind of makes sense too. Magic. Okay, I kind of get that. But here's the part that got me. And again, having a conversation with Usama, he had me laughing about this one. Magic. And they said meaning sleight of hand. He's like, so they decided to outlaw what Muhammad did. I sat there and I started laughing because look at, when you think about it, what was Muhammad? Which made him big? Oh, he was a raider. He stole things. So did he use sleight of hand? Well, what do you think about a trader? Hear my words, trader, a merchant who will go and raid other people, but yet he's a merchant. Are you trusting this? Is he a guy who practices sleight of hand? Absolutely. But they made a law against it. Makes you start to question what's really going on here. Okay, astrology. So you're looking at the stars and you're trying to find your future. Not a good idea. They have a rule against it. The sciences of the materialist. I thought this was humorous. We're going to get back into that philosophy thing in just a minute. And anything that means to create doubts. Again, you're not allowed to have doubts because that means you might have questions. You can't have doubts. All right, let's look at sorcery. P3.1. I went there and I wanted to find out what they meant by sorcery. It's an enormity because the sorcerer must necessarily disbelieve. And the accursed devil has no other motive for teaching a person witchcraft than that he might thereby ascribe associates to Allah. Shirk. Shirk. How is shirk and sorcery tied together? That didn't make a lot of sense to me. And, I'm going to keep going back and playing on that one until I get to this part of the Shariah. But that's a problem. I see that as a huge problem, that they associate sorcery as a need to associate partners to Allah. I don't see them even close to having the same thing when they've already defined it as something slightly different. And then this W10.1, and here's the other thing. The W's are simply notes. Look at that huge section there. You see those little bit of Arabic there? 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 words. That's all the Arabic that's there. So that all of this is in English. It's a note. It doesn't exist in Arabic. It's written for the English speakers. So we'll go through this real quick. Anyone who has made a serious study of philosophy must acknowledge the term has been applied to a great many widely varying procedures and styles of thought throughout its long history, and there is little substantial agreement among philosophers as to what philosophy is or what it should be. That's actually a good thing, because you can sit there and argue about what it means, so you can start to have a better definition. If everybody agrees on things, it doesn't mean you're always right. It might mean you're shooting too close to the target. You're too close to the target. You need to step back and see it more. I'm guessing Eric and Red and a few others who go shooting. I'm guessing Sharon has too. When you go and you do target practice, can I pick on you for a minute, Sharon?
Yeah.
When you go to target practice, Sharon, do you ever take a step back to see if you can shoot from farther away?
Paul, I don't target practice.
Sharon?
Can you hear me? I don't target practice. I'm sorry.
Not hearing you. I don't know if it's me. All right. I guess that's my question. If you are going to target practice and you're hitting the bullseye every time, do you take a step back? And that's one of the things Martin Luther King says. If you're hitting the bullseye every time, you are too close to the bullseye. You need to step back. Quite a statement. And they're afraid of that. What does that mean? If Islam is afraid of hitting the bullseye, that you might actually learn something. All right. So here's the part that got me. You see this 7.1? Look how small it is. When I asked Usama to translate this, I kept telling him I think there's something seriously wrong with this passage. Again, it's very, very small. We have mentioned the sections of legal science, and among the sciences outside of it, what is forbidden, hated, and permissible. Then it goes on. What is forbidden is like studying sorcery. For what is forbidden is like learning magic. For is forbidden according to the correct school of thought. Whoa. Is forbidden according to the correct school of thought, and is forbidden by the majority in like philosophy, sorcery, astrology, in the sciences of naturalists. Now, this part got me too. Science of naturalists. Okay. We have science of materialists versus science of naturalists. So I'm just going to be very simple when I think of this. I'm not a big biology science guy. I've taught biology, but here's what I'm thinking. They're upset with the idea of science. Does this explain why we have a lot of people that are not Muslim earning things like Nobel Prizes? Because everybody else is allowed to ask questions. And according to this, according to Shariah, they're not even supposed to be allowed to be interested in science. Simple science, natural science. What are we talking about? Okay, we could talk about animals, humans, natural science. We could talk about plants. I think we have some serious issues here. And they use the term material. So they're defining science basically as physical sciences. That means using the scientific method is something they're not happy with, because you can answer questions by using the scientific method. Okay. Again, it's their rules. They wrote it, not me. And then it goes on. It says everything that was a cause for raising doubts and disparity. Oh, yeah, that's what it really was all about. You can't ask questions. You can't have doubts. And I sit here laughing about this. Why is this so important that you don't ask questions? And I you can, here's the translation right next to it, so you can see it. Why is it so important not to ask questions? This is something I cannot comprehend, no matter how many times I hear it over and over again. Why is that? If you can't ask questions, you can't learn, you can't grow. But again, this creates that problem that we keep seeing within Islam, because they talk about Islam is really a form of Gnosticism. The more things you learn, the higher levels of heaven you get to. Well, the truth of the matter is, in Islam, there really is no heaven. There is a garden. There are higher levels of gardens. There's no heaven in Islam. And the more I learn of this stuff, the more it kind of blows my mind. What does that say? Here's the thing that bothers me the most when I talk about this. We are talking about the Islamization of knowledge. So in Islam, and I know those who've listened to me have heard me talk about this concept a lot. Islamization of knowledge. It is a graduate level topic. You'll hear PhDs talking about this. You'll hear the guys working on their master's programs studying Islamization of knowledge. What is the whole purpose? Whole purpose is you have to put things like biology through the rose-colored glasses of Islam for you to be able to say that's acceptable knowledge for Islam. Unless it's gone through this process of rose-colored glasses for Islam, then it's not acceptable to learn. That should be kind of scary when you start to think about it. So there are things that are forbidden that have to do with things like science until Islam says it's acceptable to learn. You have to ask a lot of questions about this. Now, only those people, we're not talking about the common people. See, this is where you get those different levels of knowledge. You and me, the common people, we wouldn't be allowed to do these things because we're common. But somebody who has better knowledge would be allowed to pursue these things. Again, it's quite a statement. You have to have that approval to learn things. Again, think about what science means. A knowledge of a system or knowledge covering general truths. Department of systemized knowledge or an object of study. Study of theology is okay. You think about biology, all these sciences you can think of. And that stuff is just a problem. Now, this comes from Ismail al-Faruqi, Islamization of knowledge. He's the founder of the concept. I say founder. Shariah is written a long time ago, but this came out in 1987 via the International Institute of Islamic Thought, which he helped found. Think about this. The great task is to recast the whole legacy of human knowledge from the viewpoint of Islam. To recast knowledge in the mold of Islam relates to the Islamic vision. It is necessary to Islamicize knowledge, to redefine and reorder the data, to rethink the reasoning and relate the data, to evaluate the conclusion. Everything is getting reviewed. So Islam can say, okay, it's okay. So what if you learn something new that's groundbreaking, that would change all of humanity? Let's say you created something like an airplane. Well, we have a problem here. So you wouldn't be allowed to share that knowledge or talk about that knowledge on. Oh, wait a minute. What does that sound like? Does that sound like the Catholic Church when they're saying you can't talk about these things? Shut up. Yeah, it does. When you hear about that period of the Inquisition and the scientific revolution, things like that. Yes. You have to be very careful. It has to be approved knowledge. Approved knowledge. Well, we're getting into something that's even happening today when we're talking about this. What's acceptable and approved. Now let's think about that. In returns to that amazing pandemic thing that went around the world, which I can't mention and stay on the air because YouTube has a problem. When you talk about the studies that came out recently that said certain things were useless to keep you from getting that imaginary COVID thing. Oops, I said that word. If you got that, if you were using one of those things that you would put over, the scientific study says it's worthless. That putting that thing on your face was worthless. That's what the scientific study said. Even Fauci wrote about it before this stuff happened, and he said doing this, putting this stuff here, was worthless. And the gold standard of studies come out and says worthless. So take a look. Here we are back again. Ismail al-Faruqi. He's talking about the knowledge that has to be approved. It has to go through this process of Islamization of knowledge to be acceptable. So let's get into this just a little bit more. It says Ismail al-Faruqi wrote the Islamization of knowledge is to Islamicize the disciplines. So they're trying to control all the knowledge. You know, we keep talking about a group like WEF trying to control knowledge. Islam has that concept as well, only they call it Islamization of knowledge. And the first time I read this, I thought it was insane. But, and I've been looking into this for about 10, 15 years now, and I'm just, yeah. Islamicizing knowledge is to Islamicize the disciplines, or better, to provide university-level textbooks recasting some 20 disciplines in accordance with Islamic vision. So again, they're going to have separate textbooks to learn because they're going to leave out anything they don't consider okay for a Muslim to learn. Why? Because it might tell them to ask questions. So let's talk about astronomy. There is a sun out there. Oh, and planets go around the sun. Would that whole book be banned? Would the topic be banned? Why? Because in the Quran it mentions the sun sets in a muddy pool. If the sun sets in a muddy pool, it stands against the Quran. Oh, you can't learn that. You can't learn that the earth goes around the sun and the two don't meet, because if they both meet, a horrible disaster will happen. You can't talk about that. that knowledge is now forbidden. Whoa. And this is the stuff they're keeping from it. They want to have a separate textbook just for Muslims on everything. I'm sorry for you that you have to deal with that. I feel sorry for all Muslims who have to accept this kind of standard of belief. And this is the best of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is a guy who helps found the Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States. It's scary to think that this kind of stuff can happen, that this is happening around. I mean, I know this is happening here in my locality. Why? Because Ismail Al-Faruqi's student used to run the local mosque here. He brags about having had him as a professor. Yeah. Dr. Muhammad Shafiq brags about this guy. Oh my gosh. To really think you have to put everything through rose-colored glasses in order for it to be approved to be learned. I can't. I mean, I'm just curious, Eric, if you were to take the concept of everything, do you think you'd be able to go through everything and cast it in a light of Christianity?
Say that one more time.
I'm sorry.
I didn't quite understand what you said.
I'm not hearing you.
I didn't quite hear what you said, Paul. I'm sorry.
I'm not hearing anything. It could be me. I don't think so.
Hold on.
I'm not hearing any speech from you.
I hear you, Eric, but I hear Paul.
Okay, 1 minute. All right.
Too.
How about now?
I'm gonna go up. Let's see if I got one.
Can you hear me now?
And I just want to point out that there's an international journal on this topic. Islamization of knowledge and exploratory study of concept. You can find tons of stuff on this. It's mind-numbing.
Can you hear me, Paul?
And what I found funny on this was the first thing up here on the first line in the abstract: Islam, submission to his will. That's what Islam means. Submission to his will. If you're submitting because you're afraid you might learn something, I have serious questions. What's going on? And what's the actual issue? All right. And all right.
Can you hear me now, Paul?
So let's keep going on here. I think this is actually the end of my presentation. Anybody have any questions? I don't know if it's just me. When I'm not hearing people, I'm just curious. Oh wait, so Sharon could hear him and I can't.
Okay.
That's not a surprise, unfortunately.
All right. I thought.
Let me see what I can do on this end.
I was about ready to lose my mind. I didn't.
I can't hear anything.
1, 2.
Oh, I know. Let me just see if it's here. Nope, it's not muted. Let's see. I can go to YouTube. Maybe I can play something. This is crazy. I have had so much difficulty with this low-tech life. All right.
How about now?
All right, Eric, go ahead. Let me see if I can hear you this way now.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Paul, can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me.
Not giving me any sound.
I can hear you, Eric. But
Okay.
I have a
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah. I don't know if Paul can hear you either.
All right, I think I know what I can do. Let's try this.
You can plug your speakers.
Hold on
in.
a second. I'm going to try one more trick here. I have to do up my sleeve. Let's see. Back to StreamYard. All right. Crap. All right, let's try this. Is that any better?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Can anybody hear?
I can hear you. I can hear
I
you.
can hear
just fine.
everyone.
I am.
I can hear Paul and Eric.
Oh, the joys of low tech.
Paul just can't hear
I
us.
can't hear a thing.
He's deaf. He needs some hearing aids.
And it could be that my
Yeah,
low
I'll
tech
email
day
it,
is
I'll
really
send
a
one of
bad
these
day.
things.
Let me
I
try this
have
one
big,
more
Eric. I got one in each ear.
time.
You give him the left one, you give him the right one. And,
Oh yeah. I got.
Yes, I'm having sound problems, you stupid machine. All right. Please forgive me, everybody. If I don't know why I can't hear today. Oh, forgive me. I'm going to end up ending this show a little early because of all the wonderful technology problems due to me having dropped my laptop. Not too intelligent. Not cool. Don't do it. It's expensive. So I got one more thing, and I don't know how if this is going to work to share. Let me see if I can or cannot share. I'm concerned today. This is the one thing I'm really concerned about that's off topic. And let me see what's going. I have no idea why I can and cannot hear today. Wow. I have no idea what's going on. So I want you to think about how the world is today and how there are so many people who keep silent. I think it's time we no longer be silent. I'm concerned that Christians everywhere are being silent. You cannot be silent. You have to go into your schools where your children are and look at what the teachers have in their rooms. If you find something that says, we won't stand for the flag until it represents everybody, that shouldn't be in a teacher's room. If you find something like that outside the room, inside the room, we have a problem because that says the teacher is sharing their political beliefs. That's not something a teacher should be doing. Okay. I mean, we have teachers out there sharing socialist beliefs. We have teachers out there sharing all these kind of things. I'm going to recommend everybody go. I'm going to throw a link in the chat room. And for those in
So what do you think, Sharon? You want to change the topic on him?
Do I want to change the topic?
Yeah, let's change it to like Yankees baseball next week.
Jeez. I don't watch sports. I'm sorry. Although I do watch the kids' sports. I live across the street from the park, and I'll go over there and watch them.
Well, next week's spring break, and my wife's a big Yankees fan, so we're driving down to Florida for a couple days to watch them lose. Or well, I don't know. I don't follow baseball. She's always been a ball player, and I don't follow it. So I'm going along for the ride, I guess.
When I was stationed over in Camp Lejeune, I went to Florida for a few days, and it was nice.
At Camp Lejeune?
Huh?
At Camp Lejeune?
Yeah, I was stationed at Camp Lejeune for almost 4 years. Yeah.
We jumped in down there, 87 or so. They put a whole stick of us in the tree. I didn't go in the trees, but we had a whole stick of them going to the trees. And it's just I don't know, just nothing but one big swamp as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, there is a big swamp, I will tell you. And the smell during certain times of the year is very swampy.
I can't remember what time of year it was. It had to be spring because I remember it was cold. It was very cold at night in the morning, so it had to be late winter, early spring. But that's my only recollection of what's the deal with the water? I keep seeing these ads for water.
I guess the water. I guess if
do something,
I lived off base, but I guess the water. I'm not sure if it was the city surrounding it or only in Camp Lejeune, the base itself, but the water was bad. Now, I actually did contact one of these outfits, one of these lawyer groups, and I haven't heard back from them. But I've had some things go wrong with me over the years. But I don't know if it's old age or or what. So if I see $10, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, and who's going to see the other 10 million lawyers, a bunch of shysters.
Yeah, that's what I figured too. Can you hear
us now, Paul?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the joy of low tech. I actually had to dig out an old camera today because the computer I'm using, the camera doesn't exist.
Oh, you know something? Your picture is different. It's not as good as it used to be. So you can tell something's different.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with this camera. I bought it because I was worried that this kind of thing would happen. That's the only reason I bought it.
I'll tell you the truth. I don't even like to look at myself.
Dragon's in the chat. She's telling everybody to subscribe and hit the like and all that. Thank you, Dragon. That woman's like a warrior. She said every morning I get up. Like this one, I get up. I usually get up around 4 or 5. Usually before 5, but 4. I was up at like 4 this morning, and the first thing I do is I open up the phone and I check those Skype messages, and there's always one from Dragon. Always something positive, telling us to have a blessed day, and it's always nice it's always sweet to hear that from her. And the amount of dedication she has to these channels and the shows like this is just absolutely phenomenal, and we appreciate you. I'll shut up now.
Oh no, I'm just curious. People who are out there that spent their time listening today, and I apologize for walking over others when they were trying to talk. I had a low tech vacation, and I didn't realize it would be good and relaxing to get away from things. And I took my computer with me, but I didn't bring my cord, so I couldn't charge. And I just, it's another good thing. Every once in a while, it's a good thing to go low tech and to get away from things. But when you're trying to do something like this, it's not exactly fun to do. I tell people that if you get a chance out there to share who Jesus is, don't shut up. Don't keep it silent. Don't keep to yourself anymore. You got to get out there and share the word of God. It doesn't matter how you do it. It matters that you share the word of God. Do your best. And my biggest thing I'm going to tell people, fight hard to live that way. You got to fight hard to live for Christ. It's not.
Can I share something real quick, Paul?
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. Me and my church and I are involved in a they call it Good News Club at a local elementary school, and I mean it's just the recommendation from the club itself, the organizers, because it's like a statewide thing, okay, is that you don't have more 5 kids. We got over 90 and we've had to split them from kindergarten to 2nd grade, and then I got the 3rd to 5th graders. And I'll tell you, there is nothing more special than sharing the gospel and leading a child that age to Christ, and you can sit there and you can see it in their eyes. You know, we go through the lesson. You know, I'll teach a lesson to the whole group, and then you got other things going on. But you know, you'll ask them and say, if you're interested in, you know, praying the sinner's prayer, receiving Christ today, go out in the hallway, or if you haven't received Christ as your Lord and Savior yet, and to see the eagerness. I mean, you can see it in their eyes, just like, tell me what I need to do. Tell me why I have to, and you get into being able to share that with somebody that young, and then to have an impact, a lifelong impact on a child like that. I'll tell you what, you know, I've shared Christ with, you know, a lot of people, I you know, adults, but to do it with a child like that, and the eagerness that you see, and you can see it in their eyes, you know, how they just, you know, it doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't.
Eric, the only thing I can say that I haven't seen that, and I'm jealous. I'm so happy that you're able to see that. I look at you know, there's great joy in serving Christ, and there's great joy in sharing Christ. And I think no matter who you are, when you find him, if you shut up, you give up a part of yourself that you'll be regretting the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Don't stop telling people about what he's done for you. I can tell you, let me tell you a little bit about my life before my divorce. I was not a nice guy, is how I look at it. I don't think I was a great guy. I think I was a royal jerk. And I don't want to say divorce made me a better person, but certainly made me take a better look at what kind of a man I was. Mm-hmm. Certainly made me look at what kind of a person I wanted to be. And I think I'm picking on men in particular. We all have to think like that. Us men, we have to think about who do we want to be. And even when we're in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, who do we really want to be? And then we're asking ourselves, as those kids get older, who do we want to be to our kids when they're in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s? Who do we want to be? I have to say today, I want to be so much more than I am. For me, writing devotionals is probably the best thing, the most important thing that I'm doing. Even though I think my work in exposing right now, working on civilization jihad stuff and exposing the insanity of Shariah, I don't think it can compare with sharing the gospel. I don't think it can compare with what I share about in the devotionals I'm working on. I only write one little piece a day for devotionals. And you know what kills me is the majority of people, that read those when I share them, and I get I can tell who's reading them from my LinkedIn account. And almost all of them are law enforcement or military. And if I can have that little bit of an impact, sharing just that little bit, and I think that says a lot to me. My purpose in writing them the way I'm writing them is to reach out to people who maybe don't have an hour or two to read. I want it to be deep. I want it to be something you hold on to and grasp and think about throughout the day. I may not pick a passage that everybody else picks. I may look at it a little differently. So while I've got you on the air, Eric, I'm going to ask you one big question. You got your Bible on you? Let me just find this passage. I think it's Genesis. Let's see if I can find it on my computer. And let's see. I think it's Genesis 19, or is it 21? Just going to get to the end here. I found something that I think every single one of us needs to look at in respect to Abraham. It's actually Genesis 21. Genesis 21, verses 22 to 34. And I want to get everybody's opinions on this because it kind of blew my mind. I feel like, you can read scripture over and over and over again. You can always learn something new from it. And this has me feeling like an idiot. And I'll explain why. I'm just going to read it. It says, "And it came to pass at the time that Abimelech and Pichol, the chief captain of the host, spoke unto Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto you. You shall do unto me and to the land wherein you have sojourned." This is Abimelech, and he's trying to make a deal with Abraham for generations to come. And Abraham said, he has no problem. He says he'll swear to this. He'll agree to it because they've been, they're like best buds. Okay. Abraham reproves Abimelech, though, because of a well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. So I think this happened, and Abraham did not believe it was because of Abimelech, but somebody that wasn't listening. And Abimelech said, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Neither did you tell me anything about it until today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, what does this mean? Why'd you set them by themselves? And he said, for these 7 ewe lambs shall you take off my hand, that they may be a witness unto me that I have dug this well. Wherefore he called the place Beersheba, because they swore, both of them, thus made a covenant at Beersheba, that Abimelech rose up and Pichol, the chief captain of the host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord and everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. So this is a deal by the guy who's leading the area known as where the Philistines lived, and Abraham. Here's the thing I find fascinating. They made this deal, and maybe I'm reading too much into this. I just why I'm asking your thoughts. And this is Abraham. And where are these people claiming they live today, who are Muslims? They're claiming they live in the land of the Philistines, which is otherwise known as Palestine. Who has the rights to this? If somebody broke the deal of Abimelech's children with Abraham, doesn't it kind of sound like that land is now given to the other? If either one of them broke the deal, because this is a deal for generations, that something would happen to that land, that it would be given to the other, that there would be something severe. I'm not saying, it doesn't say there's a penalty. This is the point I'm making. But it was a deal for generations. I mean, to me, this made me stop and think. I'm just curious what anybody else thinks on this.
Well, I noticed it doesn't say that they went down into Arabia and built a Kaaba.
Exactly.
And notice it provides details about the land that they're living in and residing in at the time. And this again is a great catch, because I'm sitting there looking for the spiritual meaningfulness of this, and then I just kind of glanced up and I said, okay, well, this is right after he casts Hagar and Ishmael out.
Yes.
And so where was this, or where exactly did he do this? And a lot of Muslims will point towards the Psalm. I can't remember what it was. The Valley of Becca. The Valley of Becca. There you go. They'll say, oh, that's where they are. They're the Valley of Becca. Clear down to Mecca. That's what that means. The Mecca is the Becca. Without examining the context in which these stories are portrayed and described and the land around them. And again, this is another desperate attempt. This is the desperation that they have in order to accommodate the theology of the Quran into that of the biblical narrative. And it just doesn't work. And this is a prime example of how it doesn't work, because you have a known place. The Philistines, I mean, for the Pete's sakes, the Romans called it Palestine, naming it after the Philistines, for crying out loud. So we know what this land was called. And what they hope is that, you know, they don't ask questions, just like what you were talking about tonight on your show, is that don't ask questions, just accept what we're saying, because if you start asking questions, then things like this come up. And when things like this come up, they get very uncomfortable because it exposes what the
I feel like this is the truth about reading scripture. You can read it 100 times.
Sure.
And that 101st time you read it, it might slap you in the face, and you'll find something so new. You're like, what was I stupid all the other times I read it? Because I mean, that's what hit me when I was reading that part. Like, I have to stop. I have to to stop this. I have to think about this more. Like, I'm still kind of mind numbed about that, because you have the guy who, I mean, Abimelech was a pretty good guy. He loved God. I mean, God has a personal conversation with him, and he doesn't say anything nasty about him at Abimelech. I mean, in fact, they both have to talk to Abraham about his fault of saying, okay, I made a deal with my wife to pretend she's my sister, but she really is. She's like my stepsister. Okay, now you learn the real story. Abraham married his stepsister. Okay, that's why he's been saying, yeah, we didn't know these things when we start reading the story about Abraham. Why did he start saying those things? I think this is where I look at this passage and I'm thinking, these are two best buddies. You think of like David and Jonathan,
right?
Best buddies. And that's how I look at this. These two are best buds. They're wishing the best for both of their families. And again, they don't make a statement of punishment for the other if one of us violates this oath type thing. You don't see that. But at the same time, you don't see the land of the Philistines anymore. You hear people claiming they live in the land of Philistines. But it's interesting they're not there anymore. And who is? It is the nation of Israel. It is Abraham's children who live there. To me, that says a lot. And like,
well, you notice who was on the show on Sunday defending the Palestinians was what's his face, the dancing ballerina guy.
Oh, the Filipino dancer, yes, Aladini. They're not ready for prompt level player of debates.
Yeah, that guy.
It was funny. He wants to debate, but he can't debate because he's got to wait for 20 minutes to get to be able to respond. That's where I say not ready.
I think he's more like okay. I don't want to get
troll.
I don't want to bring that to your show. I'm sorry.
That's not an issue. I'm not worried. He was trolling. He was trying to create attention for himself. That's all he was doing.
Well, he got attention, all right.
Well, this is where I'm looking at with the two Jewish people that are trying to insult Jesus on my post, and they're telling me to go away, and they're on my post. That's a
what's their names?
I don't have their names right now. I can pull up the Facebook
because we had a similar incident in a clubhouse room 2 days ago, I think it was, where maybe it was 2 days. It doesn't matter. A day or two ago, where you had a Jew come in and he was basically saying that Jesus had intercourse with Mary.
Oh, what?
And he wants us to respect Judaism and his view of Judaism. And I mean, this is the okay, and there's a certain amount that you can handle as a Christian, as far as the criticism of your faith or whatever. But when you have people, Mohammedizing everything, and what I mean by that is sexualizing everything, because, and this is what we see from the followers of Islam, is they'll try to justify, intercourse with 9-year-old little girls, and the reason why is because they won't condemn it, because if they do condemn it, then they're condemning their own prophet. And when you have Jews, and most Jews that I know, I get along with really well. I mean, you think of the Jews that are on our network, Al,
Yeah,
and Gotti and Damon Rose, and all these guys that on the network itself, we get along with these guys great. It is these guys who have this perverse mentality to try to make applications to try to denigrate people, or try to denigrate other people's faith through and by sexualizing it. Is just it's beyond the pale. I mean, that's just there's ways to engage people when you have disagreements, but when you get to the point where you denigrate it, like you do with Islam, because Muhammad did it himself. Oh, by the way, it just and to try to do that with Jesus, who lived a sinless life, is just reprehensible.
and this is the stuff I sit there like, yeah, I will never understand the desire to hide things, and I think I'm still going to be marveling over this little passage probably for some time, because to me that just means a lot, that there's so much there about Abraham. The one thing that the Quran can't do, which I would love for it to try, is to come up with details. If it would come up with details on its own, it wouldn't need what I think Osama calls Fantasyland Islam, presented by Ibn Kathir. Disneyland. I think he said Disneyland. He just makes stuff up. It doesn't exist anywhere in the Quran. He's got to create things as if he was there. The Bible has so much detail. I don't think, reading it for the purpose of looking at the details was a different story for me too. So when I started looking at how much is missing, I mean, I talk about that now more than ever, because I don't think I ever thought about how important the details were. I was always looking for something else, but the details tell us things that are very deep and personal, and it's kind of surprising. Again, little things that are in the scriptures. Kind of mind.
In most Muslim countries, they ban the Bible.
Yes.
And when they come here, something tells me they don't go looking for it either. So it's. I'm going to tell you the truth. I actually volunteer for the RWSPD, and it's hard to bring that up, Sharia or Islam. I tried to with the people that are like in charge of me, and it's, they're young, and they know the propaganda, and they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to do the research either. And I just look at them like, I wasn't raised that way. If I had a question and somebody told me something different, I went out. I mean, I didn't have the internet, but I went out and tried to find.
Sharon, that is so much of what I really wanted to talk about tonight. And that's where I was trying to, when I was asking Eric, the whole point is this: this generation, our generation, we were taught to do research from elementary school. We wrote book reports. I don't think they make a book.
Oh, report. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Book reports.
So, in fact, the last time I saw a research report done in a school, I think it was the only research report I ever saw done in the school that I worked in, It wasn't an English class. It wasn't in a math class or a science class. It was in a senior level social studies class. That to me is freaky scary because it doesn't teach children about doing research, doesn't teach them about doing quality research, and then they go on to college.
Hey, Paul, I got to run, brother.
All right. God bless.
God bless you guys.
Enjoy. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Hey, Sharon, we have to fight to get these kids to learn to do their own research. I'm never going to cease being amazed about that.
Well, I guess what I got to do is just keep bringing it up, like little nits, like, and then maybe one day it'll grow.
You know what, Sharon? I'll tell you what. Ask your senior officer, whoever, if they would like a free book that looks at social norms from that's what my last book is, and I've been sending it to representatives in Interpol, and I've been sending it. I'm now sending it to a place in England that does counterterrorism. They're interested in reading the book. I'm saying when you start looking at, because they're coming up with excuses for things not working. You know, well, they said Allah Akbar. That doesn't mean that it was about religion. Really? What did they just say? They stabbed the officer and they're saying Allah Akbar. We don't know why I did it. Really?
What's the last book? What's the title of your last book?
The Cancer of Civilization Jihad.
Oh, I'm on that right now.
Oh, what chapter are you in?
You know what? It just occurred to me. Maybe just set it in their room.
You know what? I will send it to them. Give me ask them if they're interested, and I will send them a personalized copy.
Okay.
I want to give this out to high-ranking. I want to give out to people who are in authority in law enforcement. My purpose is this: detectives and people who are supposed to be in charge of others in the fields of law enforcement should understand that the message of those who are purporting to be moderates are out there to deceive. When they're saying they have a different Islam or they perverted Islam, how come nobody's asked, can you show me where?
Oh, yeah, I know. They never delve deeper. Yeah.
And that's,
yeah.
You know, and the reason, to be honest, the reason why I started looking is things didn't make sense to me. You know, and this is where I feel that book that you have, the first chapter originally was all about what a willing, ignorant cuss I am, because we were attacked. We were attacked, and I remember the Cole being attacked.
Are you talking about 911?
No, before that. I remember the Beirut barracks going up. I remember all these little incidents.
I was in the Marine Corps when the barracks got blown up.
So here's my question, and you have you know what? We were attacked. We were attacked by Muslims, and you know what the question I didn't ask?
What?
Why?
Good question.
Why? And this is the part I get angry about. Why didn't the State Department ask the question? Aren't they supposed to know those answers?
And, you know, after 911, it's gotten to a point where they deny that Islam is the cause. Oh, he's a psychopath. Oh, he's mentally disturbed. Oh, he's this or that. It's like sickening.
So that's the point of that book that you have before you, is to look at, I don't know what chapter you're on, but when I know that I made Connie would have she had a hard time getting through the first chapter. She said she kept getting mad and having to put it down. I laughed.
Say that again. She kept what?
She kept looking at the first chapter on the Hijra and kept getting mad and putting it down.
Oh, jeez.
You know what? I got mad as I was writing it, so I totally get it. I felt so stupid, and that's part of what happened when I was reading this. When I was writing it, I felt, you know, like, because I go look things up. And this is the thing. I love doing research. I get that some people don't. you have to find some people you actually trust. And then you have to, when you find those people you have trust, you have to still verify. So my biggest problem with everything that I've verified, and I'm learning now, like I've been using Reliance the Traveler as if it's a good source. It's not. Here's the reason why. A lot of the translation is bad. Even though they claim it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's the best translation.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are the words sacred in that? Really? Please show me. I want to see it.
Well, you got to admit, at least, we do have it. And,
yeah. We can use it against them is how I look at it. And that's where I do use that. It's highly cited in that book. There are perverse. You really learn how perverted Allah is by reading Reliance of the Traveler.
Oh man, he's pervert, a murdering thug. He's a lying sack. You know what? And
yeah,
I mean, the list goes on. And you know what? That's Muhammad. That's why Allah.
Well, that's exactly who he is. I mean, and people will say, well, Allah. I've heard one show where they talk about Allah being the sock puppet of Muhammad, and then I hear some people say Muhammad never existed, and I'm of the opinion at this point, I'm willing to accept that someone existed who had the title praised one, which is what Muhammad means.
Yeah.
All right. I'm more likely to believe he lived in the area of Petra, because there's where I find olive trees.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no olive trees in the desert. Okay. That's where you'll find date trees, things like that. You don't find those things in the desert.
Exactly. You're exactly right. The way I looked at it, without getting like what you just thought of, I just go, well, that's what they believe. So I'll take it from their viewpoint, whether I believe he existed or not, it's irrelevant. That's what they believe.
Well, and that's what I think we have to look at those things. I mean, I took that book that you have is all about behavior. And what it was from having been in Europe, and it was one thing to meet people who were talking about behaviors, and it's another thing to actually see some of them. And I wasn't prepared for that as much as the little bits I did see. And I would say very tiny little bits and things that I did see. And, it's one thing to read about a story. It's another thing. This is why police officers in general, their life is it's not easier, it's not harder, but it's a much more aware feeling of life.
Yeah.
And you see things differently. As someone who got into intelligence analysis, I don't look at things like I used to. I've always enjoyed taking things apart and putting them back together again. And if you talking about toys or radios or things like that, I'm like your average kid who couldn't put it all back together correctly, and I had several leftover parts. But when I'm talking about faith structures, I don't leave anything out. And my purpose in research on this, I had to find a way to talk about this as a professional. How do I talk about the behavior of men and how they treat women in Islam as a professional educator? How can I do that? So I went in all of these chapters. They simply ask questions. Is there a social norm that says, let me pull out a couple chapters. This is, toot my own horn here, so forgive me, everybody who's still listening. So here's the chapters, and I'm going to skip the big one, the Hijra. Let's see, Islamic supremacy. It's not a social norm, but it is a reality. So I'm not even it's not even a question. They believe there's such a thing as Islamic supremacy. Is there an Islamic social norm against telling the truth? Oh yeah. In fact, the rules are a lot more blatant, and you sit there like, whoa, yeah. Is slavery legal under Islamic social norms? Yes, even today. Are there racist social norms within Islam? Okay, be honest, when I started that, I'd heard, I pretty much knew the answer. And the more I delved into it and finding the Islamic scriptures on these things, that led me to the next thing, which blew my mind. Reading that part, I came up with the next chapter. Is there ethnic prejudice within Islam giving Arab superiority? And all I could think about, when I was reading that, like, oh, you hear about the Chinese thinking they're the best in the world and they're the center of the world. And we talk about that in social studies. Why? Because the concept of, because they're concepts of the beginning. It's kind of interesting. Going on, are women considered less than equal in Islamic social norms? Sorry, ladies, if you decide to become Muslim, you'll never be equal with the man you marry.
Yeah.
You will always be less. Please watch out for flying hands and other things.
You passed the racist part. Just today, I was looking into. There's some things about if you're going to go to hell, you're going to be turned black. And Muhammad said that, I think it was Muhammad.
Yeah, it's in there.
Said that Satan is black.
Yes.
And then there's that word abd. I already knew this.
Okay, that's as many times as Usama told me. Okay, there are some things that for stupid people like me, no matter how many times I hear it, it's hard to hear. The word abd, and I pick on Usama for teaching me that, but you know what? It's just freaky hard to accept. You grow up in 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and in a society where the concept of racism is pure evil.
Yeah,
that's what it was like. When I grew up, my parents never taught me there was any difference between a white guy, a black guy, or whatever. In fact, if you had thought that way, I think they would have smacked you till you figured out that there wasn't. That's how I felt about. Yeah, that's how I grew up feeling. I'm not saying it would have happened, but you kind of felt that way when you're growing up.
Paul, think about this. Has anybody been asked what color you want to be when you're born, or who your parents will be, or what country you're going to be born into? I don't recall being asked anything like that.
Yes.
So nobody had a choice.
That's the hilarious truth of it. Yeah. God is so much better. Yeah. Things you can't change. Why would there be a prejudice about those things? I'm the fact that there was an ethnic prejudice. Well, I'm Arab, I'm better. Oh, really? Where I found those things?
Where?
In Islamic journals, where they were bragging about, okay, Arabs are better.
Well, I need to go.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this talk, but
I did too. Thank you very much, Sharon.
Oh, well, thank you for doing this.
Hey, if you're out there listening, the truth is, try Jesus. He's a much better person than I'll ever be, and you can find the truth that way. God bless everybody. Good night.
God bless you, Paul.
Thank you.